I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Sebastian. I'm from TruckLogics. TruckLogics is our um, web-based TMS system with built-in mobile app. And presenting today is going to be our partner, Trucker Tax Service. The presenter is Jim O'Donnell at Trucker Tax Service. If you do have any questions for them before or after the presentation, please type them into the questions box and we'll get them answered at the end. If you'd like to reach out to Jim directly after the webinar or to get connected with Trucker Tax Service or TAP app, go ahead and give Jim a call directly at his direct line, 1-888-799-1099, extension 100. And this presentation today is going to be about tax filing tips for you guys that are on the road. You're not always in contact with a computer or somebody who's a tax expert who you can ask questions to about these types of things while you're on the road. So we've decided at TruckLogics to go ahead and connect you with our partner here to go through a quick presentation about filing your taxes and answer any questions that you guys may have at the end of the presentation. So what I'm going to do now is I will yield the floor to Jim, and Jim will go ahead and take it away. Going ahead and passing it over to you. Jim, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, thank you, Sebastian. What we'll do is we'll just kind of go through this pretty quickly. There's only, I don't know, about 8, 9 slides, something like that. And at the end, as he said, what we'll do is open this up for any kind of questions that you may have. What I've done before is we went through this and I opened it up to questions early on, and we ended up not getting through the full presentation. So if you have a thought, just kind of write it down real quick, and then we'll get to it at the end. And I promise it's only going to be about a maybe 10-minute-ish, maybe 15 at the top presentation here. But write down the questions as you go through it, and then we'll be able to address anything, any kind of questions you have at the end. Okay, what we want to do, and it's not working. Let's see if this will work. There it goes. Okay, what we're going to do is, this is the agenda here, going through finances. We're going to tell you what the importance of tracking finances. Most drivers out there, especially owner-operators, guys with their own authority, even lease operators, they're very good at what they do with their loads and so forth, how to find the load, how to deliver the load, how to manage that part of it. But what they're not typically very good at is being a good business person and managing that business. Every driver out there has his own business in the eyes of the IRS, and they need to manage it just like that. And so we'll discuss that. Picking a proper tax preparer is very important. There's a very small percentage of tax preparers in this country that actually understand the over-the-road trucking industry. So that's going to be very critical, and we'll talk about that. The real drivers, real savings, we'll get to that when we get to the screen there. We have a full screen of deductions that every driver is entitled to. And then what we can do is, as I said, we'll just go through the question and answer period at the end. Okay, what you want to do, it's really pretty astounding that how many drivers I speak with, even on a daily basis, that still keep receipts like in a shoebox, or the best thing is a grocery bag. I even had a driver here not too long ago tell me that he had no receipts, because what he did is he kept stuffing all of his receipts into a kind of a garbage bag sized plastic bag. And when he was cleaning out his truck one time, he just grabbed it thinking it was trash, and he threw out all his receipts. And so he had nothing to go on. And so what you want to do is you absolutely want to move away from that. Now, the second part of this is you can pay someone to do just that. I've had drivers that have paid upwards of like $1,500 to $2,000 a year to have a personal accountant working for them that really doesn't do a heck of a lot, because the driver is still responsible for getting all of those receipts to them, get them all of them scanned and so forth. And if you're doing all of that, you might as well be doing it yourself. And now what you want to do is you want to use, and that's going to be a upcoming next slide here, but you want to use technology. You want to be sure that you're using software that's available. There's a bunch of good programs out there that are not very expensive, and they let you be the person in control of all of that. So we'll here. I'll just go to that next slide so we can talk about that. What you want to do is, and I'm about as old school as you can get, and it took me a while to really embrace technology. And what you need to do, and I really like this first line, is you just can't be afraid of it. Technology is a friend, and if you embrace it properly, it can really do wonders for your business. And it's really, technology has come so far that it's so user friendly. And I can't tell you how the percentage, huge percentage of drivers out there that say, "Oh, I'm just not much. I'm not a computer guy. I'm just not," and it really has nothing to do with that. All it is, everybody has a smartphone, and everything can be done right through your phone, and it's very easily done if you pick the right type of software package. Now, yeah, and I like that the line there that you embrace the business technology. Shoebox is not technology. It's not, because I mean, how many times are you looking for some type of expense like, oh yeah, I think I remember purchasing that GPS this year earlier, and you're literally digging through, piles of receipts to try to find that receipt. Or worse yet, what you're doing is the GPS stops working, or the laptop that you purchased, or whatever, any kind of technology that you purchased stops working for some reason, and now you have to scrounge through a whole bunch of receipts to try to find that so you can get it replaced or repaired. Well, if you had the proper technology, you'd have that receipt already in the cloud waiting for you at a fingertips, notice. So it's what you really want to use technology to your advantage. The business partner that you want to find is somebody that you trust, somebody that actually understands the industry, as I stated before. They understand technology. Now, as I said, I'm kind of old school here, but what this old school guy was smart enough to do is put people that understand technology around him. Like TruckLogics is a great start. We don't try to pretend that we know how to manage or operate or enhance an app. That's what TruckLogics do. That's their specialty. That's their expertise. Any kind of questions that we ever have with technology, we have a partner to hand it off to. They do the same thing. If any of our Tap app clients, which is our shared technology here, they have any type of business or tax related questions, they hand them off to us because that's what our expertise is. We have a CPA managed staff here that understands any kind of question, tax or business related, that a driver can throw at us. TruckLogics has a very knowledgeable staff, just filled with geeks that could help any type of technology issues. So what you want to do, and we both of our companies are exclusively focused on the trucking industry. That's what you need. That's the key, is to make sure that you're working with a company that understands your industry. Now, this is the biggest thing. I can't tell you how many drivers I speak with practically every day. And I'm like, okay, let's get your information in here, get it in here. And I'm not talking when they're a Tap App client. I'm talking prior to them becoming a Tap App client with us, when they're using technology finally. It's so easy to not want to work on things like running through all of your expenses, tracking those receipts, getting all that information put down somewhere so you can eventually get it into an organizer of some sort and then get it to your tax person. Everybody, and it doesn't even have to be an over the road driver. I mean, everybody in this country loves to procrastinate because it's just our nature. When you have the right type of technology, it keeps you from that procrastinating tendencies. Now, I like this little saying here that, as you're driving your truck, I mean, you're going to make sure that that truck is operating properly with your tires, your oil, making sure the load's good. Of course, you're going to file your 2290 because you can't move without having a 2290 filed properly. You need to look at the rest of your business the exact same way. That if you don't manage those expenses, it's like having a flat tire, and you should not be moving without having taken care of those expenses. And not even just weekly, monthly. I mean, you should be doing it daily because then it doesn't become overwhelming, and that procrastination piece just goes right out the window. It's done. I mean, and it feels so good to have that load off of your shoulders. And what once again, now here, what you want to do is you want to work with somebody that understands your industry. Now, I know we're going to get to some of that here in a little bit. Actually, what I'm just going to flip through to the next uh, slide here because what I want to do is I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with drivers just this year that have worked with an tax preparers or accountants that don't understand the industry. In fact, just this morning, what I did is we had a driver, we completed his taxes for him. First time he's ever come to us. He ended up qualifying. He's an owner operator, over the road owner operator. He qualified for a $7,000 refund. Well, I picked up the phone to call him because I wanted to talk to him about his situation. What he did is he paid in enormous quarterly payments. And when I was talking to him, he said, well, his old accountant told him that he should pay in 25% of all of his net income. Well, he obviously well overpaid it. And so that means $7,000 was sitting at the IRS the full year he had no access to, and of course, earning him not a dime of interest. That is horrible money management. That money should have stayed in a savings account, earning him interest, and it would be available to him then too. Is if that, like for instance, any kind of major maintenance issue, anything along that line, he would have access to that money. If you have the right technology and you have the right individual or right companies out there working with you, you'll have that knowledge and you'll know exactly how much to pay in the form of a quarterly payment. So it's what you want to do is make sure you're just managing your business as a whole properly. Now, the next part here is that most tax companies out there, what they do, and I'm not going to mention any by name, but our big box stores out there and so forth. What you're talking about is somebody that works part time, and even if they are a full time individual, they're like maybe the person that owns the franchise or something, they're still going to have very little tax knowledge. What they have is software knowledge. They know how to run their program, whichever company that they happen to be associated with. They know how to run that program, but they know very little about taxes, and in particular, the trucking industry. It's my own assessment, having been doing this for a long time. We're looking at probably about 95% of all taxpayer preparers in this country have very little to any knowledge whatsoever of the trucking industry. You need to find somebody that knows the industry and that you can trust. Now we have here, we're not going to go through a lot on per diem because per diem does not really equate to owner operators. If anyone out there has a question about per diem, I'd be happy to address it when we're in the Q&A. But it's really not relevant to what we're talking about here. What another big thing you want to look for is you're talking to a tax preparer, ask them if they're a CPA. A CPA, what that means is that that individual has a master's in accounting. Now, that's important, but what's equally as important, does that CPA also have experience in the trucking industry? I've had many a driver that has come to us over the years that has paid, I don't know, $1,500 to a CPA to complete their taxes, and they've done them wrong because the CPA did not take the time to learn all of the rules associated with the trucking industry. So that's another huge issue. I'd almost send you to somebody that doesn't have, isn't a CPA if they have the right knowledge of the industry. So, and this kind of blends right into the no idea about deductions. There are very few drivers, in fact, or I'm sorry, very few tax preparers out there understand the industry. We've had, tons of drivers over the years that have come to us and say, well, my tax preparer stopped putting in the deductions because they got nervous putting in, if you're an owner operator, you're out there earning $200,000 a year, you could easily have 100,000 or more in deductions, expenses, very easily. A lot of tax preparers get nervous with that and they won't account for everything. And then what they'll do is they're looking at certain things like, I know what it was. We had a driver here recently, earlier this year, that he'd given us his lease payments on his truck. Well, we noticed that it was extremely low. And so instead of just taking the numbers and slapping it into the software and moving on, what we did is we got on the phone with him. And what we discovered is that he undercut himself by, I think he only put in 2 months worth of lease payments for some reason and not the full year. That by itself got him another $25,000 in deduction. And then we started looking at other issues like fuel and truck maintenance and areas like that. And we uncovered thousands and thousands of dollars where we're going to save him easily about $6,000 to $7,000 in taxes that he would have paid if he had gone to somebody that just plugs in the numbers and doesn't actually look at the tax return and talk to the client. That's what you need, is you need somebody that's going to talk to you and actually pick your brain about, have you been doing this right? Have you been doing this right? That's what we know best. Like if we look at a driver that has sent us fuel and their fuel comes in at, I don't know, say 25% of their gross income, we know that number is extremely low because the average driver will have about 40% in fuel. And typically when we call, what the driver will say is, oh yeah, I missed, and they will have missed, I don't know, a couple of months worth of settlement statements showing that fuel. Or if they have their own authority, they literally just missed a bunch of credit card receipts. It happens all the time. And what you need to do is make sure that you're speaking with somebody that is an industry expert that really understands what your situation, what your particular problem may be. Now, this is a really good one, that the top one, that the state you live in, not the state you work in. Now, this is more related to a company driver, but here recently, just this past week, last week I should say, what we did is we uncovered a driver. He was a company driver, but his wife, who's working on his behalf, what we did is they lived in Tennessee, but his company he worked for was in Indiana. Well, for years, I think he'd been driving for 9 years for these people. He'd gone to a tax preparer or multiple tax preparers. They never changed it. What they did is they taxed him as if he lived in the state of Indiana. Tennessee doesn't have state tax. So when we went and did it, we grabbed all the money from the state of Indiana and gave it to him. And the wife was like, how did you do that? I said, because it belongs to you. You don't live in Indiana. And what we did is the state of Indiana actually fought it a little bit. We got our CPA, we got involved, we got a letter to them. They're now not only going to get this year's state tax, which was about $1,650, but we can go back 3 more years and get them reimbursed all of that money that they've paid in state tax for the past 3 years. We'd like to go back 9, but the state only allows you to go back 3. But we're going to put an additional $6,500 in their pocket just because we know what we're doing. And so it's so critical, so important that you work with a tax company that understands the industry. This next one, the devil is in the details. I'm just going to keep harping on this, how important it is to manage everything that you do every day. That a driver is out there, they're the most susceptible to losing things like receipts and not writing down expenses that they've had. We had, actually, I'm going to kind of jump around here a little bit because the shavings make a pile will be part of this as well. But we had a driver that physically told us just this year, he told us that if he has change in his pocket and whatever he's purchased, I don't care what it could be, air freshener for the truck or whatever it may be, that was under $10, what he typically does, he just pays cash for it and doesn't even think about it. Doesn't even think about saving that receipt. He's shooting himself in the foot horribly. Our program here, TapApp, what they do, our average TapApp member will collect about $5 a day in additional deductions than somebody outside of the program. It doesn't sound like a lot until you add that up. On the road 25 days a month, 5 times 25 is $125. You've already captured $125 additional deductions. You take that times 12, you're looking at $1,500 just because you're being smart about your business. It's really that easy. Now, here another big thing is the quarterly payments. I touched on this before with the driver where where he was getting a $7,000 refund. What you need to do is you need to the IRS, every tax preparer out there, what they're going to do is they're going to complete your taxes and say you owe $10,000 at the end of the year as an owner operator. Well, the software program is going to tell you send in quarterly payments of 2,500 each quarter next year. Well, in the trucking industry, it doesn't work that way because the trucking industry is so volatile. It's up and down and up and down. So what you want to do is you need to keep a real-time, accurate number of where you are with your net income and, more importantly, your taxable income. Most drivers out there will never pay the same in tax year to year. And sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Like this driver that I spoke with this morning, I mean, he overpaid by $7,000. He's joining TapApp as we speak, so he can start getting a grasp on his actual expenses. So now his net taxable income. So now what we'll do is at the end of the quarter, which right now we're going to get him caught up through the end of March, and we're going to give him a realistic number to send into the IRS. And that's only time that you need to pay. And in a lot of cases, you have no reason to pay because you don't have taxable income, or say you owe, I don't know, say $1,000. Well, we're going to have you hold on to that because if you had a maintenance issue, you surely would like to have that $1,000 available to you to pay for the maintenance, which is of course going to offset your taxes at that point. So now I know I've kind of been going through this warp speed, but now the last one there, the shavings make a pile. What we're getting at there is, the little receipts, like the story we just told you about the guy that if he spends less than $10, he doesn't keep that receipt. Well, if he kept that receipt, even if it was a $3 air freshener, it adds up, and it adds up very quickly. As I said, sometimes several $100s a month. So it could be several $1,000s at the end of the year. And that pile is what most drivers miss out on because they just don't pay attention to those receipts. Now, this is when I talked at the very start. I said that, we're going to have a list of deductible items. This is just a suggested list. The list that a driver is entitled to it's literally hundreds and hundreds long. This is the most common number or deductions. And if anybody wants a list of this, we can send it to them. All you need to do is reach out to us, and we'll shoot you out one of our. We can send you a tax organizer, and it has it right in the tax organizer actually. But what you want to do, this is the general rule. If you purchased it while on the road, or if you purchased it to go on the road with you, then most likely it's a deduction that you're entitled to. That's the general rule. The only thing you don't really need to worry about are food receipts. Food receipts are going to be covered by per diem, which is, you know what? I just realized something here. But anyway, per diem is, of course, the daily allowance that the IRS gives you to deduct as an owner-operator. When I skipped by that per diem in the earlier slide, I was thinking of company drivers per diem, which is no longer in effect. But as an owner-operator or lease operator, you, of course, still get to deduct per diem, and it's very important. And what you need to do is just keep a daily log of your nights on the road, and now that'll equate into per diem. Like our program through TruckLogics, TapApp, that you have it right there in the palm of your hand in the phone. All you do is open it up, you grab your location, and it automatically calculates the amount of per diem, puts it right into your expense list and into the profit and loss statement for you. So you have it right there every day. And now if the IRS ever came knocking on the door, you actually have a paper trail there to show them your log of every night that you've spent on the road. Incredibly important. And the more important thing is, with that type of technology, what you're doing is you're capturing those little receipts, the shavings that make a pile. You're capturing all of those, and it makes an enormous difference at the end of the year, because sometimes those receipts can be fuel receipts that go floating out the window, and now you're losing several $100s in one receipt that you no longer have the ability to get back. Now, as I said, I went through this pretty quickly. So what we'd like to do is just open this up to question and answer time, and I'll turn this back over to Sebastian so he can, open it up. I don't know how you do this exactly, but he'll open it up, and if anybody has questions, he'll either read the question as it's typed in, or if I don't know if they have audio control there, Sebastian, or not. But I'm ready to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Thank you very much, Jim. We appreciate you taking the time to go ahead and present this to everybody. It doesn't look like we've gotten any questions yet, but if anybody has any questions, you can use the raise hand icon, or you can also type your question directly into the bottom. And we'll go ahead and read it out over the air, and Jim will answer it for you. While we wait to see if anybody has any additional questions, I'm going to actually ask a question, and this is related to current events. So the IRS has actually pushed back the deadline for filing this year, but Jim, it is still absolutely essential that you stay on top of this now, as opposed to, oh, they pushed it back, I can wait, correct?
Oh, well, absolutely. Now, for instance, I just completed a driver's taxes this morning. He, unfortunately, I mean, it's a pretty big chunk, but he owes $12,000. I told him what's real important is let's get it filed now. He doesn't have the 12,000 because he wasn't anticipating this number. But I said, let's get it filed now. And what you do is you can get a payment plan set up with the IRS right away. And he did, ask. He said, well, I thought that we didn't have to file until July. I'm like, you don't. You don't have to file till July. But interest is ticking along on that. And so you want to make sure that you get it done, get it handled as soon as possible so you can start getting it paid down right away. And the other huge reason you want to get filed right now is the stimulus package that they just passed here, that $2 trillion stimulus package. Every individual out there that I think is earned under $75,000 is entitled to that $1,200. Well, they're not going to get that if they haven't filed a tax return. So, or no, that's not true. They can't have. They could have filed last year and they'll still get it. It's just if they filed 2019, they're going to be in the top 5%, and they're going to get paid a much swifter time frame than the ones that have not filed.
Does anybody else have any other questions at this time? Again, you can use the raise hand icon, or you can also type that directly into the questions box for your GoToWebinar. Any questions at all? Okay, well, it looks like we'll go ahead and just wrap this up then. I want to say thank you again to Jim for taking the time. Again, his company is Trucker Tax Service. They are available and are ready to go ahead and help everybody get their taxes filed this tax season. They are seasoned veterans of the trucking industry. You can trust them highly. They're partnered with us through their mobile application called Tap App. If you'd like to go ahead and get more information about that as well, you can also reach out to them. Their phone number again, one more time, is 1-888-799-1099. And Jim's direct extension is extension 100. Go ahead and give him a call, or you can also email him at the email address on your screen. If you have any questions about TruckLogics or the TruckLogics platform itself, you can give me, Sebastian, a call directly at my number, 704-234-6946. And I'd like to thank everybody in attendance for taking the time to go ahead and join our free webinar about tax filing services this year. Thanks again, everybody. Have a good evening.